Hi friends, it's so good to see you again. I'm here to read the next part of our book, The Night Before Dawn, which is one of our Magic Treehouse books. We are on chapter 3. We just finished chapters 1 and 2, and in chapters 1 and 2, Jack and Annie have just woken up in the middle of the night and they traveled through the woods to find the treehouse, and then Annie pulled out a book and she decided that she was gonna go to the castle. So we're on chapter 3. They just descended. That means they went down the ladder in this new time period where there are knights and castles. This chapter is called Across the Bridge, chapter 3. Annie was under the tree looking across the foggy ground. "The knight's riding toward the bridge, I think," said Annie. "The bridge goes to the castle." "Wait, I'll look it up," said Jack. "Give me the flashlight." He took the flashlight from her and pulled the castle book out of his pack. He opened it to the page with the leather bookmark. He read the words under the picture of the knight. "This is a knight, arriving for a castle feast. Knights wore armor when they traveled long and dangerous distances. The armor was heavy. It was made of metal. A helmet alone could weigh up to 40 pounds. Wow! Jack weighed 40 pounds when he was 5 years old. So it'd be like riding a horse with a 5-year-old on your head. Jack pulled out his notebook. He wanted to take notes, just like he'd done on their dinosaur trip. He wrote, "Heavy head." What else? He turned the pages of the castle book. He found a picture that showed the whole castle and the buildings around it. "The knight's crossing the bridge," said Annie. "He's going through the gate. He's gone." Jack studied the bridge in the picture. He read, "A drawbridge crossed the moat. The moat was filled with water to protect the castle from enemies. Some people believed crocodiles were kept in the moat." So a moat is a big ditch that's built all the way around a castle, and it's usually very deep, and it can be filled with water, or it could just be really steep and hard for people to climb out of. So if you fell in, you couldn't get into the castle. A drawbridge is a kind of bridge that has ropes or chains on one side, and if the castle's over here, you would have to be in the castle to lower the bridge so you could go over the moat and stay safe. And then when you get inside the castle, they would raise the bridge up and no one could enter without permission. Let's find out what happens next. "Look," said Annie, peering through the mist. "A windmill right over there." "Yeah, there's a windmill in here too," said Jack, pointing at the picture. "But look at the real one, Jack," said Annie, "not the one in the book." A piercing shriek split the air. "Yikes," said Annie. It sounded like it came from that little house over there. She pointed through the fog. "There's a little house here," said Jack, studying the picture. He turned the page and read. The hawk house was in the inner ward of the castle. Hawks were trained to hunt other birds and small animals. That's new, I didn't know that. Jack wrote in his notebook, "Hawks in the hawk house." And then here is a picture of Jack and Annie peering into the castle, watching that knight go across the drawbridge. So you can see here, this is the moat. It looks like a big hole. It's on both sides. And then these are the chains from the drawbridge. So that if you were inside the castle, you could wind up those chains and the bridge would lift up. It's very interesting. "We must be in the inner ward," said Jack. "Listen," whispered Annie. "Do you hear that? Drums, horns, they're coming from inside the castle. Let's go see." "Wait," said Jack. He turned more pages of the book. "I want to see what's really going on, Jack, not what's in the book," said Annie. "But look at this," said Jack. He pointed to a picture of a big party. Men were standing by the door playing drums and horns. He read, "Fanfares were announced to..." Oh, I'm sorry. Let me try again. "Fanfares were played to announce different dishes and a feast. Feasts were held in the great hall." So a fanfare is when there's a lot of music being played. It usually comes from an instrument like a trumpet or a drum or a brass instrument, tubas or trombones, and it sounds, sometimes they sound like this, doo doo doo, and it's very loud, and they're saying it was an announcement. It was telling people that the food was about to arrive. Annie said, "You can look at the book. I'm going in to the real feast." "Wait," said Jack, studying the picture. It showed boys his age carrying trays of food, whole pigs, pies, peacocks with all of their feathers. Jack wrote, "They eat peacocks?" He held up the book to show Annie. "Look, I think they eat..." Where was she? She was gone again. Jack looked through the fog. He heard the real drums and the real horns. He saw the real hawk house and the real windmill and the real moat. He also saw Annie dashing across the real drawbridge. Then she vanished through the gate leading to the castle. My friends, that is the end of chapter 3. I am going to start reading chapter 4. Chapter 4 is called Into the Castle. That makes me think that they might go into the castle and describe what they're doing. Let's find out. "I'm gonna kill her," muttered Jack. He threw his stuff into his backpack and moved toward the center of the drawbridge. He hoped that no one would see him. It was getting darker. It must be nighttime. When he got to the bridge, he started across. Wooden planks creaked under his feet. He peered over the edge of the bridge. Were there any crocodiles in the moat? He couldn't tell. "Halt!" someone shouted. A guard on top of the castle wall was looking down. Jack dashed across the bridge. He ran through the castle gate and into the courtyard. From inside the castle came the sounds of music, shouting, and laughter. Jack hurried into a dark corner and crouched down low. He looked around for Annie. Torches lit the high wall all around the courtyard. The courtyard was nearly empty. 2 boys led horses that clopped over gray cobblestones. "Nay!" Jack turned. It was the knight's horse. Psst! He peered into the darkness. There was Annie. She was hiding behind a well in the center of the courtyard. She waved at him. Jack waved back. He waited until the boys and the horses had disappeared inside the stable. Then he ran to the well as well. That's a weird sentence. He ran to the well too. "I'm going to find the music," whispered Annie. "Are you coming?" "Okay," said Jack with a sigh. I'm wondering, Annie is very, very brave in this book. She has no fear, but Jack is a little bit more cautious. That means he thinks before he does things. Are you more like Jack? If you are more like Jack, raise your hand. If you are more like Annie, tap your shoulders. I think I am more like Jack. I am much more cautious. I would not just run into a castle with a guard and a moat. I would want to do my research first. Interesting that you have that idea. Let's see. They tiptoed together across the cobblestones. Then they slipped into the entrance of the castle. Noise and music came from a bright room in front of them. They stood on one side of the doorway and peered in. "The great feast in the great hall," whispered Jack. He held his breath as he stared in awe. That means he was amazed. He was shocked. A giant fireplace blazed at one end of the noisy room. Antlers and rugs hung from the stone walls. Flowers covered the floor. Boys in short dresses carried huge trays of food. Dogs were fighting over bones under tables. People in bright clothes and funny hats strolled among the crowds. Strolled is another word for walked. Some played funny-shaped guitars. Some tossed balls in the air. Some balanced swords on their hands. Men and women dressed in capes and furs sat at very long, crowded wooden tables. "I wonder which one is the knight," said Jack. "I don't know," whispered Annie. "But they're eating with their fingers." Suddenly, someone behind them shouted. Jack whirled around. A man carrying a tray of pies was standing a few feet away. "Who art thou?" he asked angrily. That means, "Who are you?" "Jack," squeaked Jack. "Annie," squeaked Annie. Then they ran as fast as they could down a dimly lit hallway. My friends, that is the end of chapter 4. Oh no, I'm wondering if this man is going to chase them. I'm wondering if he is going to kick them out of the castle. I don't know what's going to happen next. What do you think will happen? We will have to read on and find out.